Right now, one of the most underestimated yet potentially largest shifts in recent years is happening in the world of technology. While public attention is focused on neural networks, generative AI, and new smartphones, Tesla continues to develop a project that could change not only the tech industry, but the very structure of everyday human life. We are talking about the humanoid robot Tesla Optimus. Not long ago, it was seen as a demonstration of capabilities and a long-term bet on the future. But over the past year, the situation has begun to change rapidly. During this time, Tesla has showcased several updates of Optimus, and if you closely look at the development dynamics, it becomes clear that the company is moving much faster than all previous players in the robotics market. The robot has become faster, gained more precise motor control, improved hands with a high degree of freedom, smoother walking, and much more confident balance. But the main thing is not the hardware. The biggest progress is happening in the software. Tesla is actively transferring its developments from autopilot and neural networks into Optimus, effectively turning it into a system capable of learning from real-world data. This means the robot can not only execute pre-programmed actions, but also adapt to its environment and tasks. However, against the backdrop of this technological leap, there is one very strange and at first glance illogical point. The appearance of Optimus is hardly changing. It still looks like a classic robot with a minimalist body, without attempting to imitate a human. And this raises questions, because if the company is truly moving toward a mass-market product, appearance starts to play a key role. And this is where the most interesting part begins. According to insiders, Tesla is now actively discussing the next stage of Optimus development. And this stage is not about performance, not about AI, and not even about autonomy. It is about the external perception of the robot. Sources claim that Elon Musk has set the goal of making Optimus more human-like. And these are not just cosmetic changes. This could be a complete rethinking of its design concept. One of the key ideas currently under discussion is the development of a special robotic skin. According to preliminary data, Tesla is considering creating a covering that can imitate human skin. It sounds like science fiction, but in reality, such technologies already exist in laboratory conditions. However, the problem is that no one has yet been able to scale this solution to the level of a mass product, especially for a full-size humanoid robot. And here Tesla is facing one of the most difficult challenges in modern engineering, because creating skin is not just about making a soft covering. This system must be flexible, durable, resistant to damage, not interfere with joint movement, withstand constant loads, not overheat, and at the same time maintain an appearance as close as possible to human. And that is only the technical side. There is also a psychological factor, the so-called uncanny valley. This is an effect where an object looks almost like a human, but not completely, and it is precisely this almost that creates a feeling of discomfort. People begin to perceive such a robot as something unnatural and even unsettling. That is why Tesla's task becomes twice as difficult. It is not enough to simply make the robot look like a human. It must be made in a way that inspires trust. And according to sources, this is now one of the main goals within the Optimus project, because Tesla's long-term vision goes far beyond factories. Yes, right now the robot is being tested in a production environment. It is learning to carry objects, work with parts, and perform routine tasks. But in the future, the company wants to take it beyond factories, into homes, into services, into everyday life. And here, appearance becomes critically important, because people are much more likely to accept a technology that looks familiar. That is exactly why smartphones, cars, and even voice assistants have so quickly become part of everyday life. They do not look alien, and Tesla wants to achieve the same effect with robots. It is also interesting that Elon Musk has repeatedly said that Tesla Optimus could become the company's most mass-produced product in the future, potentially even more widespread than its cars. And if that is indeed the case, then the question of appearance becomes not just aesthetic but strategic. At the same time, it is important to understand that Tesla is following its own path. Unlike companies that already create hyper-realistic androids for exhibitions and demonstrations, Tesla is not trying to immediately build the perfect human. The company is moving step by step, first functionality, then adaptation, and only after that appearance. And right now, according to insider information, the transition to this next stage is beginning. The stage where the robot must become not only useful, but also visually acceptable to people. In addition, the development of robotic skin opens up a whole range of new possibilities. For example, the integration of sensors. Such skin could not only look like human skin, but also provide sensitivity functions. The robot would be able to feel pressure, temperature, and contact, which fundamentally changes the level of interaction with the environment. But along with this come new risks, because the more human-like a robot becomes, the higher people's expectations. And if its behavior or movements do not match its appearance, it can create the opposite effect. That is why Tesla appears to be acting very cautiously. The company is not rushing to publicly showcase these developments, but the number of signals and leaks is gradually increasing. According to some reports, prototypes with partial skin coverage are already being tested internally. These are not final products, they are early experiments, but their very existence suggests that the direction has been chosen. And if all of this is confirmed, the next update of Optimus could become one of the most talked about events in the industry, because it would not just be an upgrade, but a shift in how robots are perceived altogether. And perhaps this step will be the moment when robots stop being seen as machines and begin to be perceived as part of the human environment. Looking at it more broadly, it becomes clear that we are at the beginning of a new technological era, one in which the boundary between human and machine gradually begins to blur. The question is no longer whether such robots will appear, but how quickly it will happen. And judging by the pace demonstrated by Tesla, the wait may not be very long. There is also another point that is hardly discussed right now, but it could turn out to be key in this entire story. If Tesla truly brings robotic skin to a working state, it will automatically open the door to entirely new use case scenarios for Tesla Optimus. It may no longer be just about an assistant, but about full interaction with humans at the level of familiar social models. The robot could exist alongside people, perform tasks, assist in everyday life, and at the same time not be perceived as a factory machine, but as something more natural. And this is where the most interesting part begins, because it is no longer just technology. It is a shift in perception. People begin to relate differently to devices that look and behave more human-like. And if Tesla successfully executes this transition, Optimus could become not just a device, but a new type of product that creates an entire market around itself. And perhaps this stage is already taking shape within the company, while for most people it still remains behind the scenes. When it comes to the future of cars, most people still think about batteries, range, or autopilot. But if you look deeper, it becomes clear that the real revolution is happening not in the hardware, but in how a person interacts with the car. And this is exactly where Tesla, apparently, is preparing for one of the most unexpected moves in recent years. According to information that is increasingly appearing in the industry, Tesla is working on its own next-generation system, which is already unofficially being called Tesla CarPlay. And this is not just a response to Apple CarPlay from Apple. It is an attempt to completely rethink the very idea of the automotive interface and turn the car into a fully intelligent center. The most interesting thing in this story is that Tesla is simultaneously moving in two directions at once. On the one hand, the company is developing its own system with deep integration of artificial intelligence. On the other hand, it is preparing to implement Apple CarPlay in the near future. And at first glance, this looks like a contradiction, but if you look closer, it becomes clear that this is a strategic move. For a long time, Tesla fundamentally refused CarPlay. The company built a completely closed ecosystem where everything, from navigation to multimedia, was developed in-house. This gave full control over the user experience and made it possible to deeply integrate the system with autopilot. But at the same time, this approach had a downside. Users could not use familiar services from their iPhone, and now a shift is happening. Elon Musk is essentially making a very unusual move. Instead of continuing to ignore Apple, he allows its system into his platform. But it is important to understand, this is not a capitulation. It is an experiment, and at the same time, preparation for the next stage. Because in parallel, Tesla is creating a system that could potentially be one level higher. If Apple CarPlay is essentially a projection of a smartphone onto the car's screen, then Tesla is betting on making the car itself the main device, not an addition to the phone, but its replacement in the context of the drive. And here, artificial intelligence plays the key role. Tesla already has a huge amount of data and a powerful infrastructure to process it. Their cars constantly collect information about routes, driver behavior, and road conditions. And if earlier this was mainly used for autopilot, now all of this can become the foundation for a completely new user experience. Imagine a system that does not just respond to commands but understands context. You get into the car, and it already knows where you are most likely going because it analyzes your habits. It automatically builds a route taking into account current traffic, weather, and even your driving style. It selects music not just from your recent tracks, but based on the time of day, your mood, and previous trips. And all of this happens without the need to manually configure anything. The interface becomes invisible. You do not interact with the system, you simply live, and it adapts to you. And this is the key difference from Apple CarPlay. There, you still interact with apps. In the Tesla of the future, you interact with intelligence. Moreover, such a system can go far beyond traditional functions. It can integrate with your calendar, work tasks, and smart home. Imagine that you leave work, and the car automatically synchronizes with your schedule, warns you about meetings, suggests the optimal departure time, and by the time you arrive home, it has already turned on the lights, climate, and the necessary devices. This turns the car into the center of your entire digital ecosystem. That is why Tesla is not just making another CarPlay. It is building a completely different model. But then the question arises, why do they need Apple CarPlay integration at all? And this is where the most interesting hypothesis appears. Tesla may use CarPlay as an entry point, as a bridge for users who are used to the Apple ecosystem. This lowers the barrier and makes the transition to Tesla more comfortable. But at the same time, inside the car, there will already be an alternative that may eventually turn out to be more convenient. And then the choice will become obvious. Not because Tesla banned Apple, but because its system will be better. This is a very subtle strategy, not to compete directly, but to let the user compare. And if Tesla truly implements everything that insiders are currently talking about, its system could become one of the most advanced interfaces in the industry, because it will be built not around apps, but around the person, not around the screen, but around behavior, not around commands, but around understanding. And this could become the very moment when the car finally stops being just a means of transportation and turns into a full-fledged intelligent device. A device that does not just execute commands, but helps make decisions. A device that does not just display information, but understands what you need. And if that happens, the question will no longer be whether the car has CarPlay, but whether it is needed at all. And here another point appears that is rarely discussed, but may turn out to be the key in this entire story. If Tesla is really creating its own next-generation CarPlay, then this is not just about competition between interfaces, it is about control over data. Because in the modern world, data is becoming the most valuable resource. When you use Apple CarPlay, most of the interaction goes through the Apple ecosystem. Music, messages, routes. All of this is tied to the iPhone. In this case, the car becomes just a screen and an interface for an already existing digital life. But Tesla has been building a different model from the very beginning. The company wants all the interaction logic to happen inside the car itself, so that the vehicle becomes the center of data processing, the center of decision-making, and the center of the user experience. And if you add artificial intelligence to this, you get a system that is capable not just of displaying information, but of shaping it. This is a very subtle but important difference, because at some point the system may begin not only to suggest options, but also to influence behavior, to suggest faster routes, optimize time, and change user habits, making them more efficient. And this is exactly where Tesla gains a huge advantage. Unlike most companies, it already has access to real data from millions of vehicles. These are not simulations or tests. This is a live environment, real roads, real situations, real people. And based on this, it is possible to train systems that become increasingly accurate and intelligent. And if you imagine that all this infrastructure is combined into a single interface, then we are no longer just getting a smart car. We are getting a system that is constantly learning, that evolves together with the user, that over time begins to understand you better than any smartphone. And then it becomes clear why Tesla is taking this seemingly unusual step with integrating Apple CarPlay. This is not a rejection of its philosophy. It is a temporary coexistence, a period in which users will be able to feel the difference between the two approaches themselves. On one side, a familiar, understandable, and convenient system from Apple. On the other, a new, deeper, and more intelligent system from Tesla. And at some point, the choice may become obvious. Not because one of them disappears, but because one of them starts to feel outdated. In the end, Tesla uses Apple CarPlay as a convenient bridge so that users can experience the difference themselves and gradually move to a more intelligent system, where the car is no longer just a screen, but a true intelligent companion that understands you better than any smartphone. Over time, this companion not only anticipates your wishes, but also becomes an inseparable part of everyday life, making every trip a natural extension of your day. Imagine a moment when one of the most ambitious companies on the planet decides to enter a completely new market for itself. A company that has already changed the space industry, made reusable rockets a reality, and began creating a global satellite internet network, now, according to insiders, is preparing for the next step. We are talking about the company SpaceX and its founder Elon Musk. According to sources close to the industry, SpaceX may be preparing its first personal gadget, a device that will resemble a smartphone, but at the same time could change the rules of the game in the mobile technology market. At first glance, it may seem that there is no point in this. After all, the smartphone market has long been divided between giants. Companies such as Apple, Samsung Electronics, and Xiaomi have spent years building ecosystems, investing billions of dollars in the development of processors, cameras, screens, and operating systems. These companies produce incredibly powerful devices that sell in the hundreds of millions of units every year. But SpaceX, according to analysts and insiders, has one advantage that no other company in the world has. It is access to its own global satellite internet network, Starlink. It is this technology that could become the key to a completely new type of smartphone. Today, most mobile devices depend on terrestrial mobile communication networks. Base stations, cable infrastructure, and operator networks limit internet speed, coverage, and the availability of communication. Even the most modern 5G networks cannot cover the entire planet. In huge regions of Earth, stable internet is still absent. These are oceans, deserts, mountain regions, remote islands, and rural territories. This is exactly where satellite internet begins to play a decisive role. SpaceX has already launched thousands of satellites into orbit and continues to expand its network. These satellites form a global data transmission system that already today provides high-speed internet to millions of users around the world. But until now, this system has mainly worked through special terminals. Now, according to rumors, the company may take the next step to integrate access to this network directly into a personal device similar to a smartphone. And if this happens, the mobile technology market may face a serious transformation. Imagine a device that does not depend on terrestrial operators, a smartphone that can connect directly to satellites and receive internet almost anywhere on the planet. This means that a person will be able to be in the middle of the ocean, in the mountains, in the desert, or in a remote village, and still have access to high-speed internet. Such an approach could completely change the idea of mobile communication. According to insiders, this is exactly what the concept of the new device from SpaceX will be built on. The company may position it as the first smartphone with truly global internet, a smartphone that does not depend on operator infrastructure and that can work anywhere on the planet. This sounds like science fiction, but if we remember the history of SpaceX, it becomes clear that such ambitions are completely in the spirit of the company. When Elon Musk first announced the creation of reusable rockets, many experts considered this idea impossible. However, several years later, the company's rockets began regularly returning to landing pads after launches. Today, this has become the new norm of the space industry. The same logic can also be applied to the personal device market. Elon Musk is known for choosing directions where a radical technological leap is possible. Smartphones today have reached a high degree of perfection, but at the same time their evolution is slowing down. Cameras are becoming better, processors faster, screens brighter, but revolutionary changes are happening less and less. That is why the appearance of a new type of smartphone that offers a fundamentally different communication infrastructure could become a serious event for the entire industry. According to analysts, if SpaceX really creates a device with full access to satellite internet, this could become a powerful competitive advantage, especially if the company can offer an attractive subscription model. According to rumors, Elon Musk would like to make the device as accessible as possible. Some leaks even say that the company is considering the possibility of selling the smartphone almost at cost. The main profit could come from a subscription to satellite internet. For example, users may receive a certain number of free gigabytes of data every month, and then if necessary, connect additional internet packages through a subscription. This approach is already used by many technology companies. Devices become part of a broader ecosystem of services. If SpaceX can offer cheap and fast global internet, this could attract a huge number of users. Even if the company manages to capture only a few % of the global smartphone market, this will already be a colossal success. Today, more than 1 billion smartphones are sold every year. 5% of this market is tens of millions of devices. Even with relatively small profit from each user, this can turn into billions in revenue. That is why the idea of creating its own smartphone for SpaceX looks logical. The company already possesses a unique infrastructure that competitors do not have. And if this infrastructure can be integrated into a personal device, this could open a new market segment. So far, the exact characteristics of the future device are unknown. Insiders suggest that the design may be quite minimalistic, possibly even more utilitarian than traditional smartphones. The main focus will most likely be on communication antennas and energy efficiency. After all, working with a satellite network requires special engineering solutions. Some experts suggest that the device may use an advanced system of directional antennas built into the body. Others believe that the smartphone may operate in a hybrid mode, using both satellite communication and ordinary mobile networks when they are available. This will allow optimization of speed and energy consumption. The possibility of integrating additional functions related to the SpaceX ecosystem is also being discussed. For example, the device may be directly connected to satellite internet services, space broadcasts, or even future projects of the company. Some analysts suggest that the smartphone could become part of a broader technological platform that will combine satellite communication, the Internet of Things, and global communication services. Of course, at the moment, all this remains at the level of rumors and assumptions, but the idea itself looks quite logical. SpaceX has already created one of the largest satellite networks in the history of humanity. The next step is to give users direct access to this network through personal devices. And if the company really decides to enter the smartphone market, this could become one of the loudest technological events of the coming years. After all, the appearance of a new player with unique infrastructure can change the balance of power in the market. Companies such as Apple, Samsung, and Xiaomi possess enormous experience in device development and powerful ecosystems, but none of them controls its own global satellite network. That is why the potential smartphone from SpaceX could become a completely new type of device. A device that connects space infrastructure and personal technologies. And if the plans of Elon Musk are really implemented, in the coming years, we may see how the company known for its rockets and space missions unexpectedly bursts into the personal gadget industry and starts a new technology race in the smartphone market. This could become the moment when space technologies truly enter the everyday life of billions of people for the first time. And then an ordinary smartphone in the pocket will effectively turn into a device directly connected to infrastructure in Earth's orbit. In recent months, extremely unusual shifts have begun to take place in the technology industry. At first glance, this looks like just another wave of hype around artificial intelligence. But if you dig deeper, it becomes clear. We may be talking about a technology of an entirely new level, one capable of transforming not only the robotics market, but also the very understanding of how humans interact with machines. More and more often, within closed circles of analysts and engineers, information is emerging that Tesla is developing a fundamentally new AI chip. This is not just a computational module, but a system that could potentially connect the human brain directly with machines. And it is precisely this aspect that is now attracting the greatest interest. Because while such ideas were previously discussed only at the level of theory, today, there are signs that real work may actually be underway. This is where a key detail appears. According to insiders, this is not just a neuro-interface in the classical sense, but a deep integration of artificial intelligence and human consciousness. A system that not only reads brain signals, but interprets them using AI and converts them into actions in real time. This represents a fundamentally different level compared to what exists today, because current interfaces allow users to control a cursor or type text, whereas here, we are talking about full control of complex mechanisms, such as humanoid robots. That is why Neuralink is increasingly mentioned in this context, a company that is already conducting real implant tests and demonstrating that the brain can be directly connected to a computer. And if this direction is combined with Tesla's developments in artificial intelligence and robotics, it becomes clear where things could be heading. Tesla has already created powerful AI systems for autopilot, is training neural networks to operate in the real world, and at the same time is developing Tesla Optimus, a robot that essentially serves as a physical platform for these technologies. And this is where things become especially interesting. If you imagine that a neuro interface can read brain signals, and Tesla's AI can interpret and convert them into actions, it becomes possible to control a robot as if it were your own body, not through buttons, not through a joystick, but directly. This is no longer just control, it is a sense of presence, where you are not observing the robot, but effectively existing inside it. According to insiders, this is exactly the direction in which work is currently progressing. The creation of a system that would allow a person to transfer their perception into a machine, to see through its cameras, hear through its sensors, and control its movements at a level as close to natural as possible. And if this is realized, it would become one of the biggest technological breakthroughs in history, because it changes the very concept of interaction with technology. This is precisely why Tesla is investing so heavily in the development of Optimus. Many believe it is just a robot for factories or a replacement for human labor, but in reality, this may only be the first layer. Because if you add a neuro interface and next-generation AI, Optimus transforms into something entirely different. A physical extension of a human, a tool through which one can interact with the world remotely. Imagine a scenario. You are at home, but controlling a robot working on the other side of the city or even on another continent. You see everything in real time, move, pick up objects, communicate with people. And the feeling is as if you are actually there. This is not just remote control, it is a new form of presence, and there could be countless such scenarios. In medicine, it could allow doctors to perform surgeries remotely with maximum precision. In industry, it could enable control of complex machinery without risk to human life. In rescue operations, it would allow work in dangerous environments. In space, it could enable control of robots on other planets, all without physical presence. But there is another level that is discussed far less often, and it is precisely this that generates the greatest interest. It is the idea of partial transfer of consciousness, not in the full sense, but at the level of perception and control, when the boundary between human and machine begins to blur, and a person can use a robot as an additional body. It sounds like science fiction, but these are exactly the kinds of ideas now being discussed in the industry. Of course, it is important to understand that this is not a technology that will appear tomorrow. There are a huge number of challenges: safety, system stability, signal transmission accuracy, and ethical issues. But the key point is that the development of artificial intelligence is now happening at an incredible speed, and this sharply accelerates all related technologies. Just a few years ago, neural networks could barely handle simple tasks. Today, they drive cars, generate images, and analyze complex data. And if the same level of progress continues in the field of neuro interfaces, then the convergence of these technologies may happen much sooner than many expect. That is why many analysts believe that Tesla is building not just a company, but an ecosystem of the future, where cars, robots, and AI are combined into a single system, and where a human becomes part of that system not through a screen, but directly. And if this strategy is realized, it could completely change the balance of power in the industry, because we are not just talking about a new product, but about a new category of technology that could become as significant as the internet or smartphones. The most interesting part is that all of this is already beginning to take shape right now, still in the form of prototypes, still at the research level, but the foundation already exists, and the pace of development is only increasing. And it is possible that we are at the very beginning of a new technological era, an era in which control by thought becomes reality, where robots become an extension of the human, and where the boundary between the physical and digital worlds begins to disappear. And if this truly happens, Tesla may find itself at the center of this revolution and become the company that defines the future for decades ahead. And there is another aspect that is hardly discussed publicly right now, yet it may become the key to this entire technology. It concerns the idea that such systems may eventually not only transmit commands from a human to a machine, but also in the opposite direction. In other words, a robot could send information directly into the brain, sensations, spatial awareness, contact with objects. And if this is realized, it would become the next step, because then a person would not just control a robot, but truly feel through it. This opens up even broader possibilities. For example, learning, where skills could be transferred more quickly, or interaction with digital environments at a completely new level, or even the creation of entirely new forms of experience that cannot be obtained in ordinary reality. And all of this is directly connected to the direction in which current developments are moving. That is why many insiders say that current projects are only the beginning, the first layer, the foundation for a much more complex system, one that could eventually transform not only technology, but the human itself. And considering the pace of AI development and the level of interest from major companies, it becomes clear that we are already very close to the moment when these ideas will stop being just concepts and begin turning into reality. However, according to the same insiders, the real revolution will not begin with full merging of consciousness, but with the creation of a bidirectional feedback loop, when the robot will not only execute commands from the brain, but also instantly send back tactile sensations, balance, temperature, and even mild pain, all at a level indistinguishable from one's own body. It is this closed loop, brain, AI, robot, brain, that could transform Tesla Optimus from a tool into a true second body for a human, erasing the line between I control and I am. Imagine a moment when transportation is no longer tied to roads, when familiar cars, traffic jams, and even high-speed trains begin to seem like something from the past. And if such ideas once sounded like science fiction, today more and more signals indicate that one of the most ambitious companies in the world may be ready to take the next step, and that step is upward. In recent months, an unusual topic has been increasingly discussed within the tech community. And this is not just another concept or a baseless rumor, but a discussion centered around two companies that have already changed the rules of the game more than once: Tesla and SpaceX. On their own, these companies have long been operating at the edge of what is possible. Tesla transformed the automotive market by making electric vehicles mass market and desirable, while SpaceX literally rewrote the rules of the space industry by proving that rockets can be returned and reused. But now, according to analysts and insiders, these two companies may be preparing for something far more large-scale, a project that will combine their key technologies. And if you carefully examine all the hints, statements, and indirect signs, a rather interesting picture begins to take shape. Elon Musk has repeatedly said that the idea of flying transport attracts him, not as a distant future concept, but as a fully real direction for technological development. And he has directly noted that from a technical standpoint, creating flying electric transport is possible, but there are certain limitations: safety, noise, and regulation, which is why he stayed away from this niche for a long time. But the important point is something else. He never said it was impossible. He said the time had not yet come, and now, apparently, that time may be arriving. Discussions online are increasingly appearing about a project conventionally called Tesla Falcon X. The name is unofficial, but it has already taken hold in the community. And if you look closely, it is not accidental. Falcon is a direct reference to SpaceX rockets, while X refers to experimental projects of Tesla, and this combination hints at the main idea. This is not just an airplane, but a completely new type of transport. If we try to bring together all the known facts and assumptions, we can imagine what this vehicle might be. First, it will almost certainly be a fully electric system, since Tesla already has vast experience in developing batteries, energy management systems, and efficient electric motors, and its technologies already make it possible to create vehicles with a large range and high power. But an aircraft is a completely different level of requirements, where not just energy capacity matters, but its density. And this is exactly the direction Tesla has been actively working on in recent years. New types of batteries, new architectures, and new materials. And if we assume that they have achieved a certain breakthrough, it becomes clear why the topic of aviation has begun to resurface. Second, autopilot. If today Tesla is already testing fully autonomous cars, then the next logical step is to transfer these systems into the air. And here, there is even an advantage, because unlike roads, where there are a huge number of variable factors, airspace is, in a certain sense, more predictable. This means that the first mass autonomous flying transport may appear precisely in the form of such a project. Now, the most interesting part is the role of SpaceX. SpaceX has unique experience in developing engines, flight control systems, and aerodynamics, and its technologies are designed for extreme loads, high speeds, and complex conditions. And if we combine this with the experience of Tesla, we get a very powerful combination. Essentially, Tesla brings energy, intelligence, and user experience, while SpaceX brings the physics of flight, materials, and engineering foundations. And it is precisely this combination that may deliver the breakthrough that the market has been lacking. As for the vehicle itself, according to experts, it will not be a classic airplane in the usual sense. Most likely, it will be something in between an airplane and a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. This means a system capable of taking off with almost no long runway while still achieving high speed in horizontal flight. This solves one of the main problems of aviation: infrastructure. If such an aircraft can take off from a compact site, it opens up completely new usage scenarios: urban transportation, fast travel between cities, and a new level of personal transport. And this is where things get really interesting, because such a product is no longer just transport, it is a new category. If Tesla actually enters this niche, it could become the very step that once again reshapes the market, and not only the automotive one. There is already a segment known as eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff aircraft. Dozens of companies are working on them, but they all have one problem: scale and integration. No one simultaneously has batteries, software, production, and flight experience at the level that Tesla and SpaceX together possess. And that is exactly why the idea of their collaboration generates so much interest. If we continue developing this concept, we can imagine what the user experience might look like. You do not get into a car, you call a device, it flies to you. You get inside, and the system automatically builds the route. No pilot, no complex settings. Everything works like a service. And this is no longer science fiction. It is a logical continuation of what Tesla is doing with autopilot. Now let's talk about design. Based on concepts and leaks discussed online, such an aircraft could have a streamlined shape, a minimalist body, and hidden engines. It is possible that some technologies will be borrowed from SpaceX rocket developments, such as cooling systems, body materials, or even elements of jet propulsion. And here another interesting hypothesis appears. Some insiders suggest that the aircraft may use a hybrid system: electric propulsion for the main flight and additional boosters for takeoff or acceleration. If this is true, it could deliver incredible performance. But even without that, the mere appearance of such a device already changes everything. Now the main question is when. And here, there is no exact answer. But if you look at Tesla's development cycles, you can notice a pattern. The company works quietly for a long time and then makes a sudden announcement. Cybertruck, Optimus, even Roadster, all of these products existed as rumors for a long time before being revealed. And it is possible that the same stage is happening right now, a phase of hidden development. Some analysts believe that the first prototype could be shown within the next few years, possibly as a demonstration rather than a full product. But even that would be enough to shake the market. Because this is not just a new product, this is a new era. And if Tesla is really betting on such a project, it means they are once again looking further than everyone else, beyond cars, beyond roads, toward the sky. And perhaps in the coming years we will witness a moment that changes everything, a moment when transport stops being a limitation and becomes an opportunity. But there is another point that is hardly talked about, and it may turn out to be the key factor in this entire story. Because this is not just about a new type of transport or a new device, it is about a change in the very logic of movement. Today, the entire infrastructure of the world is built around roads, cities, logistics, routes. Everything is tied to a flat plane. Even aviation, despite its speed, remains dependent on airports, schedules, and complex infrastructure. And it is precisely this limitation that has so far prevented flying transport from becoming truly mass. But if Tesla and SpaceX are indeed working on something like Falcon X, they may take a different path, not adapting to the existing system, but creating a new one. And if such a project really exists, it becomes clear why there is so little information about it. Because this is not the kind of product that can be revealed piece by piece. It is a system that must work as a whole. Right now, Tesla is gradually entering a new stage of development, and it is no longer just about electric vehicles or autopilot. The company is essentially building a full AI ecosystem, with the car at its center, and around it a whole network of devices, services, and intelligent systems is being formed. If earlier the car was simply a means of transportation, now it is becoming part of a unified digital environment that constantly interacts with the user. It is in this context that the idea of a new autonomous AI device from Tesla emerges, which could become the main interface between a person and the car. This device does not resemble a smartphone in the traditional sense. It does not require constant attention, is not overloaded with applications, and does not force the user to open a screen every time. Its main task is to quickly and accurately control the car and all related processes. In essence, it is a personal AI controller that is always with the owner and directly connected to their Tesla. Imagine a simple situation. You walk out of a building and tell the device to come to you. No clarifications, no extra actions. The device immediately determines your location, analyzes the surrounding environment, and sends a precise command to the car. The vehicle does not just drive to coordinates, it chooses a convenient stopping point, takes into account traffic, pedestrians, road restrictions, and arrives exactly where it is comfortable for you to get in. Everything happens quickly, without unnecessary steps, and without the need to manually control the process. When you get into the car, the integration becomes even deeper. The device instantly synchronizes with the vehicle and transfers all your settings. Temperature, seat position, music, route, everything is already prepared in advance. You do not configure the car. The car adapts to you automatically. Next comes trip management. You say go to the city center but avoid traffic, or find a faster route even if it is slightly longer. The device does not just build a route, it analyzes road conditions in real time, evaluates battery charge, checks the load on charging stations, and selects the optimal option. If charging is needed along the way, the system decides on its own where it can be done faster and more efficiently. And this is where Tesla gains a serious advantage, because no other company controls the entire process so deeply. Tesla has the vehicle, road data, charging infrastructure, and AI that can unify all of this into a single system. The device can not only control the car, but also fully monitor its condition. At any moment, you can ask how much charge is left, where the car is, whether it needs servicing, and you receive not just an answer, but a concrete action. For example, the device can automatically schedule a service appointment if it detects a problem, or suggest the optimal time for charging based on tariffs and your schedule. Another important aspect is predictive behavior. Over time, the AI begins to understand your habits. It knows when you usually leave, where you go, and which routes you prefer, and it starts acting in advance. For example, in the morning, the car is already ready for the trip, the route is planned, the cabin is preconditioned, and the battery is at the required level. You do not need to say anything. The system prepares everything in advance. This changes the very logic of interaction with the car. Today, you control the car. In the future, the system will control the process, and you will simply set the direction. This becomes especially interesting in combination with autonomous driving. When full self-driving reaches the necessary level, such an AI device could completely replace the usual way of interacting with transport. You do not think about parking, you do not search for your car, you do not plan the route. You simply say where you need to go, and the system does everything else. At the same time, the device works not only with the car, but with the entire Tesla ecosystem. It can manage home charging, interact with Powerwall, and optimize energy consumption. For example, it can decide to charge the car at night when electricity is cheaper, or conversely use stored energy during peak hours. And if we add future Tesla Optimus robots into this picture, it becomes even more interesting. The device turns into a unified control center, not only for transport, but also for physical processes. You can give a command, and the robot will perform the task, while the car is ready for the next trip. In essence, Tesla can create a system where all elements work as a single whole. The car, the home, energy, the robot. Everything is controlled through one AI interface, and this device becomes the key to the entire system. And if you look at this more broadly, it becomes clear why this could be a revolution. Because for the first time, a device appears that does not just help you use technology, but takes over the management of real processes. It does not show information, it acts. And if Tesla truly implements this concept, we may see a transition from smartphones to an entirely new type of devices. Devices that do not require attention, do not distract, and do not overload the user, but simply do their job. In that case, the main question will no longer be how powerful your phone is, but how intelligent your system is, because it will determine how you move, how you use energy, and how you interact with the world around you. And if Tesla is the first to make this truly convenient and reliable, it could take a position that was previously held only by the largest technology companies. But now, not in the world of smartphones, but in the world of full AI-driven control of reality. And if we continue this logic further, it becomes clear that Tesla can go even deeper and make interaction with the car almost invisible. For example, the device can automatically track your day and adapt transportation to it without direct commands. You leave earlier than usual, the car is already on the way. You are delayed, it waits and adjusts its position. You change plans, the route is recalculated before you even say it. The key here is not just convenience, but the feeling that the system truly understands what is happening. It does not react to individual commands, it works with context. For example, if you have a meeting in another city, the device can check the charge in advance, plan a stop at a supercharger, choose the optimal departure time, and even take into account weather conditions that may affect energy consumption. As a result, the trip turns not into a task that needs to be controlled, but into a process that is already optimized for you. Another interesting scenario is interaction with multiple vehicles. If, for example, you have 2 Teslas in a family, the device can automatically choose which car to send. It takes into account charge, distance, workload, and even user preferences. At some point, you stop thinking about which car to take. The system decides which option is best in a given situation. It is also important to consider that Tesla actively develops over-the-air updates. This means that such an AI device will only become smarter over time. New functions, new scenarios, more accurate behavior models, all of this can be added without replacing the device. Essentially, you are not buying just a gadget, but a continuously evolving system that over time begins to work better than on the first day. And if you combine all these elements, a very powerful picture emerges. You have a device that understands your habits, a car that can act autonomously, an infrastructure that supports the entire process, and AI that unifies everything into a single whole. This combination could become the next step in the evolution of technology, because it is no longer about individual devices. It is about an ecosystem that functions like a single organism. And if Tesla truly brings this idea to the level of a mass product, we may reach a point where driving a car stops being a task for the user and becomes simply part of the background of everyday life.